Hey, everybody, and welcome to our ninth episode of the Inferno cast. I, of course, am Inferno Fox, head of the Inferno Fox Gaming YouTube channel. And today we are going to be going over a very interesting topic, sort of goes along with last week's topic. But before I get into that, I want to go ahead and introduce my esteemed cast here. We, of course, have Simbu Darkfang. He is our level 5 grandpa and performer at Basement of the Dead. That's Basement of the Dead in Aurora. And that do note that opening night for Basement of the Dead is going to be Friday, September 22nd. I'm going to include a link in the description on the podcast here that's available via Apple iTunes /podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, as well as, of course, YouTube, so that you'll be able to access if you want to get tickets and are in the Chicagoland area. But getting back, Simbu Darkfang. Simbu, thank you so much for joining us.
Still going to swat every single one of you. All right. So better behave.
We'll make sure to get off of your lawn there, Mr. Grandpa. Next, we have Stormrosesky. She has the Twitch and YouTube channels of Stormrosesky, and she recently posted a video going over her picks for the top 10 forgotten cartoons of the 80s, which I highly recommend. She's got some really great media content there. Storm, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And just have to say, our level 5 grandpa, I'm happy to say that he actually reached a level 5 grandpa in Texas Chainsaw Massacre this weekend when we played. So that was awesome. When we got the level 5, I was laughing. And I think that was the one and only time I've seen him get level 5. But, that was good. That was fun. So I'm glad to be here.
It's the first time that counts, though, and you finally did it. Finally,
Yes.
the day after it came out, I take it.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. I've heard that game is actually probably one of the best ones released by I'm sorry, was it Gun
Media.
Gun Media, thank you. Sorry about that, Simbu. Gun Media, it's one of their best releases so far. It's got, I think it's like the low to mid 70s on Metacritic, so that's a good release for them. Moving on for the rest of our crew here, we of course have Jason the 13th. He has the YouTube channel of Jason the 13th, where he's got most recently some Tears of the Kingdom game playthroughs on his channel. So you definitely want to check that out. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. I just wish I had more time for recording right now. It's been very long work days and very slow on the recording.
I could definitely understand that pain when things get so busy with work and whatnot, with our real lives, our real jobs, and what have you. Next up, we have Astrimedes. He is a developer and co-owner of Second Place Games. They're pretty good. Check out videos of their various games, including Horde Lord, which is now available on all Android devices via Google Play, and of course videos of that and other projects on the Second Place Games website. Astrimedes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Always happy to be here.
And we also have Jamie Owls. She is, of course, my partner and partner in crime, and she'll be collaborating with me on more content through my channel here at Inferno Fox Gaming on additional videos. Jamie Owls, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
So today's topic that we're going to be getting into, as I mentioned, is going to kind of be like a mirror to what we talked about last week. Back then, we, of course, talked about video games directly based off of movies and TV shows. This week, instead, we're going to be talking about the movies and TV shows based directly off of video games. But before we get into that illustrious topic, I want to ask my crew here a warm-up question. And we're going to start with Simbu. And Simbu, what was the last video game that you stopped playing because you couldn't or didn't want to beat it, like a single player experience? What was the last single player game that you were playing, you just lost the urge or desire to beat it or finish it or complete it?
Most recently, Mass Effect Andromeda. I picked it up on the PlayStation Store for the $10. Kind of figured after years removed, give it a another go, and I don't know what it is. It's just lost my attention again. It feels very floaty as far as aiming and look. So, I mean, that could probably be part of it, but again, it's just I got further in it this time than I did the first time, but again, just I lost interest.
That's definitely really interesting. I haven't played the Mass Effect series myself, but I've heard from a lot of individuals online that out of the whole series, that's probably the worst one. Besides, of course, the ending to the third one. No, obviously, no, I won't give any spoilers on that because I don't know what they are. I don't want to spoil it for myself and look it up online.
The original ending to the third game, yeah, the original ending to game 3, yes, but then they went back and they released a patch and gave it a ending that was probably what it should have already had been when the game released. Still not a great ending, but better than the original.
That's good to know. So like if you get the legendary edition, you most likely you've got all that time being invested in those the 3 entries, like, well, 20 to 40 hour games each, you're at least going to have some payoff to that. That's good. That's good to know. Jamie Owls, kind of the same question. What was the last video game that you stopped playing, kind of like a single player experience that you just lost interest in beating or finishing?
Probably Dead Space. I just couldn't get into it. I mean, I'll eventually finish it, but I just lost interest because I felt like each level was kind of the same, and I decided to start playing other games. So, but yeah, that's the only one I can think of right now.
Interesting. Yeah, and that was one of the one of the many of the heralded games that have come out this year is like a highly well done, but you know, sometimes every game isn't for everybody. So, you know, shoot.
I'm surprised you didn't give Simbu a heart attack right there with his reactions.
I almost fell out of my darn chair. All right.
I didn't say it's a bad game. It's just
Well, like I
lost
said, you know,
interest.
yeah. Not every game is for every person. And that's literally, wait till you hear my answer. If Simbu didn't fall out of his chair then, he will for mine. But Jason,
Yeah.
what was the last video game that you stopped playing because you couldn't or
Just kind of lost interest? Actually, Simbu would know this one. The last one that I was actually playing that we started up, because the two of us kind of started at the same time and even did a couple missions together, and we both kind of lost interest, was the Monster Hunter World that was the free on PlayStation that we both downloaded, played it, and it just kind of, they gave us, there's just these quests that Simbu will tell you that like you can't bring stuff with you to the quest, you have to find it all, and it was just, yeah, I don't know, there wasn't as much monster hunting in those couple quests.
Yeah, yeah, that was I know a lot of people that love the Monster Hunter series.
There's a lot of them.
It's just, yeah, I gotta go with Jason the 13th again, but that wasn't my most recent game. I just lost interest in. So
yeah, and I'm gonna be right there with you guys. I tried Monster Hunter Rise for the Switch, and it's a very well done, runs beautifully for the Switch. I mean, it's like an MMORPG essentially, but like an action MMORPG, and just the level of detail your characters have, and it just didn't resonate with me. And it's Capcom's, I think, #1 or #2 best-selling series, which is it's crazy. But Storm, how about you? What was the last video game that you stopped playing because you couldn't or didn't want to beat, finish, or complete it, like single player experience?
Probably Mortal Kombat X. I did make it through the Mortal Kombat 1, which would be whatever 11, but yeah, Mortal Kombat, and just kind of gave up on it a little bit. There is another one, and it is the one that just, I don't know, everybody has loved it. It's the Horizon Zero Dawn. I have played a little bit of it, but it's just meh. I don't know. Storyline is just not grabbing me or whatever, something about it. So
Wow.
yeah, I know.
Interesting.
I know. Given how much I love God of War, you think Event Horizon would be right up my alley, but no, I'm replaying Immortals Phoenix Rising right now instead. So yeah, there you go.
I really can't fault Storm on that one because at one point Horizon does get to be a bit of a slog.
Yeah.
And you kind of gotta just power through it.
Yeah. I'm not a whole lot through it either, maybe like 10-15% complete. So
but you said 10-15% in a game that big, that's hours. You've played it for at least a couple or a few hours, so you would know. Absolutely.
Yep. And just meh, just not into it. So I'm not totally given up just now, just went to other things. So
Astrimedes, how about you? What was the last video game that you stopped playing because you couldn't or didn't want to beat, finish, or complete it?
Truth be told, the majority of games I play, I don't end up finishing them. I play a lot of roguelikes though, so to some extent, like sort of get a pass there. But the last one, probably the most recent one that I picked up, was initially kind of interested in, and then my interest waned. It was probably Risk of Rain 2, which I didn't get until somewhat recently, maybe like 6 months ago. I really liked the first Risk of Rain. Risk of Rain 2 goes into 3D, which initially put me off. Then I eventually came around to the idea of and played it a little bit. And it's like I could see what it would take to get better at the game to keep playing, but I just felt tedious. To me, it's like all these boil down to like when it feels like work instead of something you're like excited to get to the next part of. It's like that's when you lose interest. Like another probably recent bigger one is Mad Max from a little while ago, the Mad Max game that came out in whatever it was, 2017, maybe something like that. It was pretty fun. I think they did a lot of things right, but it quickly got to the point where I kind of saw the whole possibility space of the game and was like, all right, I don't think I have that much more to look forward to. And like the kind of car upgrades and stuff didn't really do anything significantly fun enough to kind of like keep me invested, it felt like. And so yeah, those are probably the most recent ones. I would say I'm maybe in danger of falling off on Darkest Dungeon 2. I haven't touched it in a little while, but like I still like the idea of playing that one more and getting into it. So it probably doesn't qualify yet.
Oh, interesting. That is really interesting. And the roguelike thing, that's really, really freaking hard to be able to beat those. And I've only played about 5 of them myself. So but like Jamie Owls will tell you that when I really want to play and beat something, I really get to be tenacious about it, and I do everything I can to beat it at least the once. So
yeah.
For me, the last video game that I stopped playing because I just lost interest, God of War 2018. Got about 5 hours into it, and I think I got into a new area or something like that after completing the one Norse related one, and I'm just like, I have no desire whatsoever to play this anymore. It just not grabbing me, and it just was something where I'm like, okay, the gameplay loop for God of War 2018 is a heck of a lot better than the PS2 and PS3 entries, but it just wasn't anything to be able to like hold me. And like frickin' Kratos has the personality of a stump. So without having that sort of like development, I'm used to I guess I'm just used to my RPGs and stuff with a wide myriad of characters, but God of War is a whole hell of a lot more subtle than that, especially Kratos, his own various, but it's just it's Astrimedes, it's kind of like what you said, where it's like you kind of know the score a few hours in. Do I want to invest the time to be able to get into this? And then especially knowing that there's a whole nother game that will get into that detail, I'm like, just not grab. Maybe I'll return to it,
Yep.
maybe not. But
this is work, not fun now.
yeah, and to that end, it kind of goes. This question's a good segue for my topic that I'm going to have for this Saturday on the Inferno Fox Gaming channel about whether you as a player do need to beat, finish, or complete games. So if this question interests you, definitely feel free to stick around and check that video that's going to premiere this Saturday at 10 a.m. But moving on to the main topic, of course, as mentioned, it's going to be movies and TV shows that are based off of video games. And we've, of course, got the second highest grossing sale movie of 2023. That, of course, is Super Mario Brothers, the movie. And just the whole idea that we can have actually, in this instance, I would say, a good outing for a video game franchise in this sort of format, and especially with other TV shows that have released, especially recently, especially something like The Last of Us on HBO. You really have some good forms of this, but it's not the best. I want to ask you guys, what do you believe? What do you believe is the best movie and or TV show, if you've seen both? What is the best movie or TV show based off of a video game? And why is it 1994's Street Fighter starring Jean-Claude Van Damme and Raul Julia? Astrimedes, go.
I would probably, as a generally kind of certified movie snob and fan of kind of HBO overly serious dramatic stuff, for me it probably would be Last of Us, even though I had some problems with Last of Us. I would say it's hilariously, I didn't actually play the Last of Us video game. I've seen clips of it. I have a good idea of what it is, but yeah, I watched the show and I felt like this really does a good job of trying to flesh this out. And I mean, it's an interesting example too, because I feel like in the case of Last of Us, when they made the game, they kind of wrote it like a movie and then made it a game, and then they're basically transforming it back into a movie / cinematic series that is effectively a movie. And yeah, I thought it was executed pretty well. And actually, I was walking with a friend the other day in a mall, and there was an area we were in where none of the kind of lights that were on, half the lights were on, half weren't. It was very dark hallway, and I said to him, "Oh, this looks like some scene out of Last of Us," and he's like, "Yeah, it does." And I found out a minute later I had only ever seen the show, he had only ever played the game, but the reference was 100% understood. So I feel like it's kind of a good example of it must have done something right.
Excellent. Simbu, how about you? What do you believe is the best movie or TV show that you've seen?
I mean, as far as sticks true to the game, I'm honestly, I want to say Last of Us was really well, but as cheesy as it is, the original Mortal Kombat movie.
It's wondering how long in the discussion it would take for the Mortal Kombat movie to be brought up. Didn't know if it would show up here.
Hey,
right.
We got about 3 or 4 minutes in, and 2, we mentioned the Street Fighter movie before the Mortal Kombat one. You're welcome.
True, you beat everyone to the punch.
Yeah, like I said, I just got to give it to the original Mortal Kombat movie. It was cheesy and blah blah blah. And we won't talk about Annihilation. Yeah, that one was okay. It's not the train wreck that everyone calls it, but yeah, we could have done without. But it's a tournament for Earthrealm. I mean, what else can you say? That's the whole premise of the original game, and who's the best fighter of all?
It's
Yep.
probably almost every criticism you could level at the movie, you could also level at the game as being something that was also true. So like it was
Yeah.
cheesy, it was a product of its time. Check.
Although it wasn't
Yeah.
as bloody or gory as the game. In fact, it was
True.
PG-13.
It was, yeah, that was probably its biggest failing more than cheesiness or anything. Is people wanted a gory, cheesy movie for Mortal Kombat.
Well, and of course they ended up getting that, recently with the newest Mortal Kombat iteration.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen it, but yeah, I did see a trailer and
new
that
one
looked to be the case.
I actually like the new one a lot.
Yeah, Jamie Owls and I had seen it together, and it was okay. It was all right. I honestly I like the original better, but I like this newer one better than Annihilation.
Agreed.
Speaking of which, Jamie Owls, what do you believe is the best movie or TV show based off of a video game that you've seen?
Well, Mortal Kombat was like the very first one I seen. For me, it was probably the Tomb Raider. They came out in the early aughts with Angelina Jolie. Yeah. And also, of course, the newest Super Mario Brothers that came out. I'm not going to even mention about the one that was made in the 90s. How horrible that was. Gosh, yeah.
A cult classic in its own
No,
strange way.
Well, let's context here. Jamie Owls hated the early 90s one because she didn't like how Yoshi looked.
Oh,
Yes.
you mean the little dinosaur? And they took it literally as a dinosaur?
I wanted him to be this cute little green dinosaur, yes.
And
So I
they
look
made him
forward
a
to the-
real dinosaur.
He
And
needed
all
a
you-
real one.
And all you got was a cute little velociraptor.
Yep.
I forgot about the velociraptor in there.
Storm, how about you? What do you think is the best movie or TV show based off of a video game?
I'm going to have to go for movie. I really like the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Honestly, I really like Jim Carrey as what's his name? Dr.
Robotnik.
Yes,
Eggman.
thank you. I wanted to say Dr. Doom, and I'm like, no, wrong franchise.
Yeah.
Completely wrong franchise. Okay. So that was good, but quite honestly, the Super Mario Super show from the 80s and also the Legend of Zelda, the cartoons that was only like on for a season. I absolutely
Excuse me,
love those.
princess.
Yes, they were so much fun and cheesy 80s, early 90s cartoons. So I just adored those. I am excited I've seen the game played once or twice, but Five Nights at Freddy's has a TV series coming out, I think on Hulu. I think that was it. And it looks very, very interesting for horror genre. So that should be fun. But yeah, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show and Legend of Zelda cartoons, definitely favorites. I'm surprised y'all didn't say Pac-Man. So there you go.
we leave you to our Pac-Man mentions.
Yes. I may do a history of Pac-Man video. So for my channel, you never know.
Ooh, yes, that please do. I definitely would want to have you do that because you have a lot of really great perspective with that franchise. Definitely. For me, Jason, I'm not forgetting about you, but I'll give my answer. I think the best video game movie probably I've seen probably would be the Mario movie, although Sonic 2 is pretty close. It's good. Like if the Mario movie is a 10 out of 10, Sonic 2 would probably be like an 8 out of 10. Something like I like how pretty the Final Fantasy VII Advent Children looks. The storyline, the overall story for it is nonsensical. You're basically watching an hour and a half or 2 hour CG trailer for, hey, this is what Square Enix can do with their CG, and that's no, this is what a Final Fantasy remake would look like back in 2005. So like it looks good and all that, but it's
like a CGI demo reel.
yeah, exactly, a
Pretty
2-hour
much, yeah.
CGI demo. So I can't even say that. So yeah, I'm gonna and then Scott Pilgrim is the opposite. Was the opposite, where it's a movie based off of or no, a video. It was a shoot. It's a movie based off a comic book, which is off a video
features
game.
video games heavily.
Exactly, and then kind of the same with Wreck-It Ralph. It's
Yeah,
also
Wreck-It Ralph was a movie first.
exactly. So like
they made the actual Wreck-It Ralph game after the movie was a hit.
So both Scott Pilgrim and Wreck-It Ralph have video game concepts, but they're not based off of video games. So I'm just kind of like, for me, it's Mario. And a TV show I like. I'd really have to think about that. I don't really watch a lot of the shows. I haven't seen The Last of Us. I haven't seen the new Twisted Metal. Astrimedes, you mentioned that you had seen that. I'll get your opinion ready, because I definitely want to get your feedback on that. But yeah,
Your favorite is Halo. We know, it's okay.
yes, the best part was within the first 5 minutes, and he took his helmet off. That was so like the series, because that's exactly what John the Spartan did. He absolutely took his helmet off within the first 5 minutes. Good call, Simbu. Yes. Speaking of that, as I'm going to ask Jason what he believes was the best movie or TV show based off a video game, I'm also going to ask him what the worst that he's seen.
So you guys did cover pretty much the best ones, and my best so far, from now TV shows aside, because I haven't seen any of the new ones, I could only go off like the old school, which was like Super Mario Brothers, Zelda, all that kind of stuff, which are all good, but they're cheesy to their time, of course. Video game movies, at least they started out kind of crappy. Like everyone, Mortal Kombat was the best of the original like video game movies, and they're only getting better. As I'm gonna say, I don't know if what they had in the original Sonic trailers was the real plan or not, but if it was and they actually fixed it, they did a really good job with Sonic, which I'm grateful on that. And the Mario Brothers is probably my favorite video game movie right now. It's just, over time, I think they took the time and they actually made the movie to the fans, rather than trying to go, hey, here's the story, let's spin it in our own new way. That they actually used as much as they could. I don't even know how many different like clips of things they use from all the games in there, but it's hard to top that right now.
One of the YouTube channels that I follow, Game Explain, counted, I think it was 384 Easter eggs. They literally, with a fine-tooth comb, 384 is what they found.
That's
Jeez.
definitely an insane number for a quick movie. Yep.
Yeah, that's a labor of love. That's how you know the person who made the original game also helped to make that one.
Okay, as for the opposite side of this coin, and I know you made the joke with Street Fighter, but they really did a really bad job with the Street Fighter movies.
Oh, yeah, I got that one.
There was maybe a few good parts, but for the most part, they were about as bad as Mortal Kombat Annihilation. They were pretty much at the lowest of the lows there. Hell, I'll take the original Super Mario Brothers movie over it, because it was at least something different enough that I can watch it on its own and be like, I enjoyed it for the cheesiness that it is, rather than the Street Fighters. I've seen them like once and I'm like, yeah, no, never going back to them whatsoever.
That's too funny. Jamie Owls, how about you? Would you believe that the 90s Mario movie is the worst of the video game adaptations you've seen, or is there something that beats it in the awesome level of awfulness?
So I've never seen the Street Fighter. It's been a very long time since I've seen the 90s Super Mario movies, except I think we were watching something on YouTube about it, talking about how that was like the worst movie ever made, and just seeing some of the scenes. I can't think of anything that could top that.
Astrimedes, how about you?
I would probably have to say the 90s Mario movie is worst. Just like, and it's like I'd rather see a terrible video game movie that does what that does, kind of echoing what Jason was saying. At least they tried something kind of weird. I think they were very wrong-headed about everything they actually did, but at least they kind of tried, but it still turned out pretty awful. So that's the one that comes to mind as the worst, probably. And then best I would say is probably Last of Us. I haven't thought of a better example. Though, I am starting to enjoy the Twisted Metal series, as you mentioned. I don't know if we want to derail into talking about that yet, because I have some conflicting thoughts on that one.
Hold on to your thought pants on that, because I want to touch upon your thoughts on Twisted Metal after I ask Simbu, what is the worst video game based movie or TV show you've seen?
Oh. It involves a hidden blade. The name of the movie is Assassin's Creed.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
It follows liberally, and I mean liberally, follows the whole point of Assassin's Creed. The Animus makes absolutely no sense, because in the games, as any of you who have played them, no, you're laying on basically a virtual reality table. It's Matrix. It's basically the Matrix. So to see Michael Fassbender, who I really do believe he did an excellent job in the movie itself, as an actor and as a, trying to portray his character. But all of a sudden now he's in some giant, whatever Professor X uses to see everything, a giant spear, and he's just kind of running around on, with Gladys's attached to Gladys's arm from Portal. Like, come on, really? That makes absolutely no sense.
That's a good one.
I forgot about that.
Jake Gyllenhaal's best role. Wasn't that the one that Jake Gyllenhaal was like the lead in?
No, you're thinking of the Prince of Persia movie.
Oh, I'm getting confused with Prince of Persia. Both of them did not see, but they look pretty bad.
Prince of Persia was the game first, right?
Yes.
Prince of Persia, I wouldn't say was like all-time best, but it was actually a really enjoyable movie.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of surprising. I hadn't heard that, but maybe it's a credit to the acting pedigree of Jake Gyllenhaal. I wanted to say that.
Maybe. I wouldn't say it's Oscar winning, okay?
Oh, Storm, how about you? What do you think is the worst movie or TV show based off of a video game?
You all have already said it, but the Super Mario Brothers movie from 1983. And then
it's got its good
Fighter.
Moments.
That first Street Fighter. Yeah.
Not enough good moments.
yeah. They're just glaringly bad, but I don't know. It's the bit of nostalgia, so soft spot for it a little bit. But however, there is a newer Pac-Man cartoon that just came out a couple years ago. It's more like 5 years ago now or whatever, but they computer animated.
Ooh.
And I just don't like computer animation a whole lot. It looks, I do and I don't for cartoons. Some of me thinks it's lazy and some of me doesn't, whatever. That's just my opinion, and I'll be quiet.
Like that Donkey Kong Country computer animated TV show that just looks
yes.
It looks like it was animated on a Nintendo 64.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not good. So there you go.
No, that's a good one.
I gotta wonder though, that Donkey Kong animated series, I wonder if they were trying to capture a nostalgia point by intentionally animating it in that style.
Yeah, you might give them too much credit for that.
Yeah, that is a good argument aesthetic wise, but they failed. They failed at doing that.
I think that one came out in the time where there was a lot of shows doing the computer animation stuff.
Like TMNT, I think that was in the aughts when they moved to the CG kind of. It didn't look good for TMNT,
no.
but it still looked better than the Donkey Kong Country series. But for the movie, you're all wrong. The worst video game movie is Double Dragon. Double Dragon is the worst video game.
I forgot that it even existed.
Because
I've never seen Double Dragon.
I've played the arcade a little bit, the NES versions a little bit, and the movie.
I think I've seen it too. You mention it, it must be a repressed memory from how terrible it was. I kind of remember now.
I forgot
just
all
a little
about
bit.
That movie.
Yeah,
I'm having to Google it a little bit. Like, what is that movie?
So imagine how terrible Street Fighter is, but you don't have the redeeming effect of a good villain played by Raul Julia. And imagine you got the campiness of like the Mario movie, but again, you don't have good actors like Dennis Hopper literally chewing the scenery. And like you get Double Dragon. Oh my God, that probably is the worst video game based movie I've probably seen. I almost said the Dragon Ball movie, but anime is not video games, so that doesn't count. But kind of talking about the video game stuff, I'm gonna defer now to you, Astrimedes, on your overall thoughts with Twisted Metal. My original thought, seeing some of the trailers, footage, and hearing that what is it, Papa Doc from 8 Mile, the Falcon, Anthony something or other, he's in the Twisted Metal series. He was also in Black Mirror. Seeing that and thinking about like, okay, so you have have him as a star, like where's Sweet Tooth, where's all of that. It kind of had me concerned about how good the Twisted Metal series would be. Astrimedes, what are your thoughts?
Right, real quick to interject, I've only seen the trailers myself, but they show Sweet Tooth in the trailers multiple times.
Did they?
Yep.
Yes, they do.
Okay,
Yeah,
I must have
like is there.
I must have cut out in disgust after the first one. Like, what is this?
He does come up pretty quickly. Yeah, like my general thoughts on it were so if I was initially not really enjoying it for the majority of probably like the first episode. I won't get into spoilers or details for anyone that cares about that, but just generally speaking, I'll say I felt in the beginning, watching it in the first like 15 minutes, I was feeling like this is just going to be like a particular kind of like early 2000s music nostalgia and scenes that are trying to look like they're from the game kind of mashed together. It felt very pandering, basically. However, as I watched it a little more, a lot of the pandering stuff dropped off. And what I will say that I was kind of surprised by is that I was initially a little kind of impressed compared to the games in most installments, that the story was actually pretty thought out in some respects. You know, a lot of things still don't make sense. Whenever there's people driving around the wasteland with gas guzzling vehicles, it basically automatically doesn't make sense. But they did their best to kind of like explain it and create like a setup that's like a broader world explanation for how there could be these people out in the wastes, you know, driving cars to get place to place that are often have weapons on them and stuff. But so I thought the actors were like pretty good. That was better than I expected. They actually have some names in there like Thomas C. Howell. I forget the guy's name exactly, but I like him. He's from the original Wings series as Lowell is how I always remember him, but he's been in a bunch of things since then. But I think the show, I will say it's taking a little longer, which I don't necessarily mind, to like get into a bunch of like kind of raw pedal to the metal kind of car combat stuff. There's bits and pieces of it, but yeah, the other kind of impression I get as I watch it is I don't know how the timelines work out exactly for what went into production when, but it felt a little bit to me almost like the writers were told, look at Last of Us, except make it fun and not sad at all and based on Twisted Metal. But yeah, so I think I will actually keep watching it, which I will say, if I hadn't been, watching it for my research duties for the show here, I probably would have cut out, partway through the first episode. But I hung on because I was curious, and I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by it. And I think I'm about 4 episodes or so in, 3 or 4 episodes before in now.
Nice, interesting. So it's funny how there's a lot more in I guess in this instance, like world development that maybe wasn't so much in the original entries beyond like the literal text boxes or the endings if you were lucky enough to beat the game with said characters. It kind of makes me wonder, like, and Simbu, you touched upon this a little bit, like the question of how accurate to the original game do you need a movie or TV show to be, to that end. And I was thinking about it. Probably the best video game TV show I've seen easily is going to be Castlevania, and I'm kicking myself for not thinking of that when it was my turn to answer, because that anime and that overall series from first through fourth season was fantastic, but it was only based on 2 Castlevania games, the NES third one and then the PS2 one, starring I think Hector, but they padded a lot of the when it came to the time of the PS2 game part of that timeline. They continued a couple characters from the NES version of Castlevania 3 when there was no game or anything really of that beyond maybe a little bit that was in was it Lament of Innocence? I'm trying to remember the title. I'm sure Castlevania fans that have played that are probably like growling at me. No, Trevor was in that. You don't remember. What are you talking about? But Simbu, I'm gonna ask you, like, because you kind of touched upon this, and you've got an awesome amount of experience with a lot of these single player games and whatnot. How accurate do you need these movies and TV shows to be to the video game, the original game?
It honestly, a lot of it's going to depend on what are you going for. Are you trying to turn the game into a show, or are you trying to, like The Last of Us, turn the game into a show, or are you doing what like Halo Forward Unto Dawn and those animated ones did, where they just captured the Halo universe? So and of course, again, that's a lot of what depends on what are you actually trying to capture. Because if you're trying to capture John Spartan, taking him to his childhood home, and then at some point, I didn't see it, but giving him a lovemaking scene, absolutely does not fit the Halo experience whatsoever, and has nothing to do with the Spartans in general.
And to that end, is that something where they're just trying to pad it to make it more accessible to those that aren't interested in playing the video games, or really haven't done so, or to drive us video game nerds absolutely insane because that stuff doesn't exist or occur in said video games, because they're trying to do it all in the travesty that's called the live action Halo series. Storm, I also want to get your feedback on that too, because you've got a good amount of experience with a lot of the media overall. How accurate do you feel these games should be based off or how accurate do you think the movies, TV shows should be based off the video games?
It depends on their audience, I suppose. if you're targeting, the video game diehards, you then would want to make your story match as close as you can. Some of these video games have great stories behind them. So, the writers don't have much work to do other than fleshing out some dialogue or adding some things that should make sense. Like the things to the movie should make sense, like Simbu just pointed out. If there's a love making scene that doesn't quite mesh for what the game is, why is it there? And you can whatever, just that's filler stuff. But if they look closer at the video games, you'll find some of them have enough there that you don't have to try to insert something that isn't there, because
I see what you
these
did.
games these games have such great stories behind them that, look at right now, I'm just looking at Immortals Phoenix Rising on my screen. It has several side quests and stuff, though those side quests have their own stories and those characters have their own stories. So, anyone who does enough with the video game could look at it and figure out what to do. And I think that's why The Last of Us has done so well. I've not watched it yet, and I've not played the game either, so I'm real careful on my comment on it, but I've heard really good things about it because it's been close to video game. So they've done something well with it. But there's also, then if you're going to get inspired by, it's fine to just be inspired by, but you have to make sure that your audience is well aware that this is inspired by, it's not a direct adaptation of whatever, because people get finicky about what you do with books to film, and same would be here, like video games to film. So I think it's a little important to get close to the video game, but then again, it depends on what audience you want. If you just want the diehards, then your audience may be a little bit smaller. But if you want to try to reach a bigger audience, then you have to throw in some of the fluff and you have to have some of the stupid, because our attention spans need it. And there you go.
I actually want to add something, if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
So nowadays, today especially, video games have become very popular. So I can see why a lot of these writers want to make sure these shows are really good and they match the actual storyline of the video games, because, back in the 90s when they were making like these video games, they weren't as popular as back then it is now, in my opinion. So I don't know if nowadays they want to make sure they please their audience too, because I just feel like back in the 90s it just wasn't as like demanding or popular back then as it is now.
Yeah, and a lot of those people that are making the movies now grew up with the bad video game adaptations, like the old Mario movie, the Double Dragon, Street Fighter, and all of the whole cavalcade of crap. So they want to be able to make something better, especially because more often than not they grew up with the video game, so they want to make something that sort of speaks to that. And at least that's my sort of general.
I think you're right. That's definitely a factor. Like a lot of the writers and everything out there today, like you said, they grew up with games, so they're not viewing it as some alien market kind of segment, whatever. But I think the more kind of cynical take would be in pure kind of like marketing numbers. The people that are a fan of this video game, those numbers are available. And that's a big base compared to what it would have been in the 90s, whatever, just because as we've gotten older, playing games and stuff too. So like just by the numbers, it's a much easier sell to the studio execs looking at the numbers from today of what your potential audience is going to be for your weird video game movie idea, versus like in the 90s when it would have had to have been sold pretty hard because those numbers were way smaller. So that's why you got more weird stuff with more kind of pandering to the general audience elements.
Yeah, because the idea that you're going to have Ryan Reynolds voice a small yellow rat makes a lot more sense now, especially the fact that that's the #1 merchandise property out there. So I mean, that in of itself, that's like easy money.
Yep.
Well, I wanna toss in here. Everyone brings up the '90s. Let's go to the aughts. Halo. Let's go with with the aughts Halo, the movie that was supposed to come out after Halo 3 released. We were supposed to get a live action movie. The movie was mostly film. It got canned because it was going to go, fairly well over budget due to the CGI requirements. So the studio canned it, thinking they weren't going to make the money back and profit off of it. So you can, bring up the '90s and hard sells and things like that, but that was still being faced in the aughts. And I still to this day say that if the Halo movie came out when it was supposed to after Halo 3, it would have been one of the highest grossing video game movies of all time, because Halo 3 was the height of Halo's popularity.
Two reasons you're right. Number one, Metroid also dealt with that because Charlize Theron was slated to star as Samus Aran in a Metroid movie in the aughts, and I think that was supposed to be directed by John Woo. Number two, look how well the World of Warcraft movie did internationally, where I think that came out like late in the aughts, or was that early in the teens, where that just freaking bombed in the States, but it made hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars in China. And that was one of the many reasons why the whole Chinese market became so lucrative for movies, and why you often saw a lot of MCU movies. Oh, why are they all of a sudden in like Korea or South Korea, like in Avengers Age of Ultron? The Chinese market. You have all of these movies with action scenes. Oh, why are they in Beijing? Because of the Chinese market. So that a lot of the reasons is because of a movie like World of Warcraft, and that came around that era. It didn't stick the landing in the States, but it sure as heck did in China. Kind of moving the gears along here, sort of in the narrative aspect. One of the nice things, but comparison between the movie versus a TV show, is with the movie, you of course got anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours, versus a TV show where it could be a limited series, such as the first season of Castlevania, where it's 20-minute episodes. So like 80 minutes, but then you got something like The Last of Us, where I think they're what, an hour each, 45 minutes each,
about 45 minutes each,
and like 10 episodes. So you have the opportunity to sort of expand the narrative with something that's a TV show. So Jason the 13th, I want to kind of bounce this off of you, because not only are you a YouTube content creator, but you're also a writer. I kind of want to know, what are some of the like video game entries or series that you feel would make better TV shows, just because there's a lot more time available versus just a movie?
It all depends on the game. You kind of hit on a point that I was going to say, like with the World of Warcraft, they chose to follow orcs as their story instead. Or Halo, they didn't just want to do the whole war. They're trying to give you a whole background for a character. Well, depending on your story of your game, or like Resident Evil, where they completely start off kind of following the game, but completely spun out of control and did all their own. It all depends, because if you have a game that has a story behind it, say Final Fantasies, they have really good stories for the most part. If you were to take that and then just spin it out of control, it's gonna fail. But a game like that would be a cool TV show, because you would have more time for that longer experience. Now you take like the Twisted Metal, there wasn't a whole lot of story in the game. Or if you were to do a Mega Man, there's not a whole lot of story in each game, that a movie would be a better for those games, because then you can write out a shorter storyline for it, and I think it would hit better. I don't know how Twisted Metal will end up in the end. I haven't watched it. I'd like to watch that one still. But a game where it's got the short story I would think would be a better movie, where games with longer stories could be better TV shows.
Storm, if I can get your feedback on this as well, because I know that you've done quite a bit of writing too. What kind of video games, like, is there any particular video game series that you would think would make a good TV show versus a movie, or vice versa?
Okay. God of War, I could see being a good series. They would have to make sure that Kratos is not played by The Rock. I'm sorry. I will boycott.
No,
that
no
that is
Rock
just
for Kratos.
no disrespect to The Rock. He just yeah, I'll leave it at that. Man,
You want
the
to go
man has
wrestler
tried
Triple
to
H.
yeah, the man has tried to act. Some of us are not actors, so we don't do it. There you go. But God of War would be good because there's lots of the legends and the mythology that they could dive into. So I think that is why they're looking at it. And that would be more of a long form series to me, like the Netflix or Hulu to pick up, or one of them. A shorter, something short, honestly, like Sonic has been okay with his movies. Mario's okay with their movies. Those type of video games you don't need a whole lot. I'm surprised at Final Fantasy they've tried to do movies for, because I think that franchise has a lot more stories you could delve into and would make better long form series, as long as they get the right writers, the correct writers, and because we had a lot of bad movies in the 90s and back then, because the audience wasn't as reachable. The internet at a certain point hadn't quite kicked in, and now the internet is here and everyone has a voice. So those negative reviews don't hit it as hard. If you wanted to know how bad a movie was, you had to actually go see it. You didn't have people telling you how bad it was as easily. You know what I mean? Like the critics weren't as loud. Air quoting loud.
Say you had to catch Ebert and Siskel and Ebert on what channel was that, like late night, and listen to them rant about every movie sucks except for this weird indie film that we saw that makes absolutely no sense, but it was magnificently done, and it's the best movie of all time.
Oh, I saw that. That's a good movie. Yeah.
Back in the day, my mom and dad, this is a side segment, but they used to not like them because they did not like Home Alone at all. And Home Alone was great. So my mom and dad would always give them a hard time. But yeah, I think that would be part of the issue now for people, is that there's so many more critics, and we're also, video gaming is starting to be taken more seriously than it was back in an early time. Video games were a boys thing, and the audience, it was a good way to sell toys, and it was a good way to sell product. I mean, it's still a good way to sell toys and product, but now I think they're taking it a bit more seriously, because the video gaming is a huge industry and a big money maker. So money talks now. And what's his name? I forgot. Oh my goodness, our other chat. I forgot your name over here. Artemis. Yeah, thank you. Artemis.
Astrimedes.
Astrimedes.
Took me a second to realize you were talking about me.
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head.
Danny Glover.
Danny Glover.
Getting too old for this.
Yes. Well, I know. Yeah, I didn't want. Yeah. Anyway, I could name you, but I don't want to do that. Anyway, what you said about the numbers being there, that that has everything to do with it. They now see what this industry is, and I think the video game industry might even be bigger than porn, and more moneymaker now. So there you go.
Well, it definitely destroys the film industry.
Yes.
Yes.
I believe it destroys film, written,
music, and television combined.
Music and TV all combined. Yeah, the video game industry alone just decimates all of it.
Mm-hmm. So it is good for the products to get the respect they have, because there are some fabulous games out there, and if people get to learn about those games because they're seeing TV shows that are well done, and that will intrigue me to pick up this game that you might not have before, that's only a win in that area too.
And that absolutely happens, because I mentioned it before in other chats and offline, where the Last of Us TV show came out. When that did, the PS5 remaster started selling like gangbusters. Same thing with the Super Mario movie. It's no wonder that the amount of copies of New Super Mario Brothers U started increasing like crazy, along with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and the Nintendo Switch when the Mario movie came out, further cementing the fact that we're never going to see a new Mario Kart game. It's just not going to happen, you know.
And no, we'll get the DLCs. Hey, at least we got that.
And then we're going to get 48 more new tracks for 2024 and 2025. We're never getting a new Mario Kart. It's just not going to happen. But and so kind of make that comparison with the other industries. One of the things, a little on topic, off topic, is the fact that like stuff like superhero movie fatigue is a real thing as of late. Because you got stuff like you got DC's Flash, Blue Beetle, Shazam's Fury of the Gods pulling less than $60 million in their opening weekends, something unheard of for these movies. And then the overall dilution of product by Marvel of like the phase 4 and 5 narratives, thanks to no less than 13 TV shows that have premiered or will premiere on Disney Plus. So the question, of course, is, are we now finally moving past the MCU and the DCU and instead moving into an NCU, i.e. Nintendo Cinematic Universe, or other such combined universe with the many different video game properties now that are really hitting the big time? Are these video game movies going to be what the MCU was essentially on and before Marvel's Endgame and Infinity War? Storm, I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I'm a huge Marvel fan. So I think though the fatigue is here, there's just an oversaturation of a lot of them. So yeah, I think we may, I don't know, unless we hit another peak where that's what the country is looking for. I mean, it's just all of those typically have come out at a time back in the day when the country was in turmoil, and that's when horror movies come out, because people want to feel like they're in control of things. So if that comes into a play, but I think the audience is changing just a little bit, so I don't know how much more of those we'll see burst into video games or into movies, vice versa, because there are a ton, and I think people are tired of them. There are some great products out there, but it may be time for us to explore something else. And when it comes to those types, though, the superheroes, there's the comic book fandom of them all that is very, very protective of those properties. So the games and things have to be well done. And, but I'm excited for the new Spider-Man Miles game coming out. So yeah, I don't know if that helps to answer, but that's what I think.
No, that's definitely good feedback. Jason, I kind of want to ask you the same thing, just because you are both a lover of comic books and video games.
Yep, I am definitely a Marvel fan, just like Storm. As you can see right here, I've got the Dark Phoenix hanging up. But I think Marvel shot themselves in the foot after Thanos, that they didn't know where to go, and they kind of killed it with Phase 4, because it's not as coherent as Phase 1 leading up to Thanos. Like, everything's supposed to be mixed, but yet it doesn't feel like anything is mixed anymore. So yeah, they need to take a back road. I don't think they'll stop, because Disney knows how much of a moneymaker it is. As for DC has been screwed up since the beginning. They can't keep the same writers. They don't know what direction they want to go. They keep changing everything. They've just been screwed up. They've done much better with their TV shows. I used to watch the DC TV shows a lot, and those were written really good. hell, take the writers from their TV shows and make it their movie guys, and they might do better. But I'm hoping to see I'm hoping that like Mario starts like a Nintendo MCU type thing, to where you get a fresh world to dive into, where there's excitement for it, instead of, hey, look, another Marvel movie. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be it's just a movie, you know? I would like to see something come of it, to where it keeps rolling.
Yeah.
So far, a couple other ones that they've tried doing the same thing with haven't kicked off and haven't been as big. So I want it to be big.
Simbu, what are your thoughts on that too? Is it because Jason had really mentioned about how both Marvel recently dropping the ball, DC never being able to grab the ball and shoot and actually score beyond outliers like Wonder Woman. Do you feel like that this is now the time to shine for these movies to have expanded universes, or at maybe at best just enjoy single success? What are your thoughts?
Well, so we'll take DC as an example here, prime example. Blue Beetle has just surpassed Wonder Woman 1984 for the absolute worst opening weekend ever. So congratulations. They have now solidified themselves as the worst. And as we all know, Wonder Woman 1984 was a tragic opening weekend. So Blue Beetle, congratulations, you own that title.
Ooh.
As far as the DC cinematic universe, now, had they continued with the Dark Knight, when they went with Dark Knight, blah, 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 Dark Knight Rises, all that, if they would have kept with that Batman, now we add in Smallville, the Clark Kent from Smallville, i.e. Tom Welling. Had they went into the DC cinematic universe there, I think they would have found more success. Only because you had all this prep work that was already, all this foundation that was already laid. And then now all of a sudden we got a brand new Batman and a Superman that's basically Batman because he's dark and broody now. Like, no, that's not Clark Kent. Clark Kent and Superman is, we all fell in love with Tom Welling, the little doe-eyed farm boy. And of course they ended the season 10 of Smallville with the perfect way to end it, which would have kicked off the movie series. Superman flies for the first time. Okay, the first time you ever saw him fly, and actually intend to fly, not he woke up hovering over his bed kind of thing. Was the very end of the show. That would have been perfect pitch right into Man of Steel. But they didn't. They chose to go with Henry Cavill, who looks great as a Superman. He fits the superhero persona, but the Superman he played, it's not Superman. DC kills it in TV. They kill it in animated series, like the Batman Ninja thing, Flashpoint, things like that. They kill it in animation. Marvel gets its tail handed to it in animation, and TV, but kills it in the box office. So I think, honestly, they're, again, to answer your question, they need a break. We need a break from superhero in general. Keep it going just enough. Like, the one thing I love that Marvel did recently was the What If series.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What If series was great. It was refreshing. It was brand new. It was, something completely out of left field as far as the MCU was concerned. So I think they need more stuff like that. Just kind of continue with the What If series. But video games, yeah, I'd like to see an NCU. I'd like to see an SCU or a Sony Cinematic Universe. I'd like to see an XCU, the Xbox Cinematic Universe. Like, give us a good Halo, like expand for Halo, for example. The show could have expanded into the books. Fall of Reach, the Flood.
Mhm.
Okay, there's three total books. I'm blanking on the third one, but there's 3 books to that series. They could have expanded there and done a show based off of the Fall of Reach, the first book, but they chose not to. They chose to make John Spartan a human. That's not the feeling of John Spartan from the game. The whole mystique is the fact that he takes his helmet off finally at the very end, but you still don't get to see his face.
It's and it's funny how we refer to him as John Spartan when that's the Sylvester Stallone's character in Demolition Man.
Yep.
but he doesn't have he doesn't have a last name in Halo. It's not known.
His first name is John
Dash
and
117.
He's Sierra 117 or Spartan 117. So we just call him John Spartan.
Yeah, and I do kind of feel like it's really video games time to shine. Jamie Owls, do you sort of feel the same way? Do you feel like where these comic book movies and whatnot are failing, where we can sort of have these video games sort of take up the mantle? What are your thoughts on that, Jamie Owls?
I think so. I mean, I've heard from other people say that the whole super movie is now a bust, but not a bust, but like it ran its course. So I think like now these video games are going to be like the next thing to, if people can be entertained by it.
Yeah, and Astrimedes, you had a quite a telling reaction to the overall topic. Are you kind of in agreement? Thank goodness the superhero fatigue is hit. What are your thoughts?
In general, I think the movie industry needs to start writing original things. So
Agreed.
I do think I think it's sort of sad almost that we frame the conversation this way. What will be the next big thing that has them avoid writing their own intellectual property from scratch? Is like that's basically what it boils down to. So I do think though, to answer the question more directly, I do think what we'll probably see is probably a similar cycle of video games. I'm guessing we maybe are in the height of it right now in terms of like quality content. And we're probably going to get into ET the video game territory pretty soon here, or Netflix and every other streaming service in the early days creating way too much content kind of position, or like basically hit the same point superhero movies have potentially. But the one thing I'd say that is a nice thing, at least, about if movies made from game intellectual property became the next big thing, the next wave of movies that came out, would be at least that none of those things have to be connected. Like, to me, part of the fatigue, I liked comics when I was younger. I never got super into them, but I liked them. Definitely nothing against comics or anything in general, but I was immediately like, as the first 2 or 3 movies came out and I saw what the clear writing on the wall was, that they wanted everyone to know that there were going to be 100 more of these all in the same universe. And ideally you've seen every one, because ching, 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 that's where all the money is. If you see all of them, like, it just makes me kind of like less interested. So like for me, I do think there's a chance we do see a batch of video game movies. I think what they'll at least have going for them is that everyone can be its own freestanding thing while still, following that overall trend line. So at least there's kind of more freedom there in what kind of content we would see. But yeah, that's my grumpy old man opinion on shared universe movies.
Yeah, and all these video game movies and whatnot recently have only referenced their own sort of stuff within their own universes. Like the Mario movie, it only referenced stuff within all the Mario games and the Donkey Kong games. I was expecting, beyond, of course, anything that referenced specific video games like Mario playing Kid Icarus, beyond that, and like stuff where it shows Punch Out on a poster. Beyond stuff like that, it's not like we saw the Hylian shield of Lynx hanging on a wall in a castle or something like that. That kind of stuff was really out of bounds. So it's not anything where, at the end of the Mario movie, all of a sudden you see Nick Fury. Oh, I'm sorry. You see Rauru of Legend of Zelda talking to Princess Peach and saying that a distant galaxy is in trouble and it's up to Mario to help Link or anything like that. You know, it's not like how Iron Man 1 ended. So at least with that, I feel like Astrimedes, you have a really good point where these can stand on their own. And if there is going to be an NCU and we have the Avengers style movie, i.e. the first Smash Brothers movie, it's going to be a thing where you go to it and, hey, there's my main, I'm maining Link and there he is. And I get the 20 or 30 minutes of time of Link. And I didn't have to see the Mario movie to catch that, at least not yet. But
hey, just remember, Mario and Luigi will find the special plumbing, the tubes that will take them to all the other worlds.
Because remember, Peach did say that there were thousands upon thousands of galaxies, so it wasn't necessarily ruled out. But
I would at least hope that the movies Nintendo releases follows the same general quality control standard, which is to be careful, do it well, only release it after you are 100% happy with it.
And the 90s movie, the 90s Mario movie was the big tell to make sure of that, because this Mario had been in production for anywhere from like 3 to 5 years, so that they could avoid that. And they got the creator of Mario, Shigeru Miyamoto, to have a hand in the literal creation. So they use concept art for Mario's parents. That didn't come out of nowhere. That was literal concept art from the original Mario that released in 85. So enough of showing how much of a Nintendo and Mario nerd that I am. So this overall great conversation regarding movies and TV shows based off of video games. So just want to say thank you again to both the audience. We have Simbu. We have Wild.
Before
Simbu.
we end, I do want to ask one question to everybody, and I know I don't normally do this, but out of all the video game-based movies you have watched, what is your most memorable theme?
Memorable theme.
I will go first, and it is the first time. I do believe it was the first time it was ever done. It was the Doom movie, and it is the first-person shooter sequence.
I didn't see that. I remember, like, I've seen clips of that, and yeah.
It was wild for the time, because it had never been done before. It looked very seamless.
Yeah, I don't know what I would say on that.
I can't think of anything.
Okay, maybe not the most memorable for most people, but I found it one of the funniest in my opinions. So if anyone played the original Mortal Kombat game, you could cheese through 90% of the game by just low sweep. Oh,
geez, from the new movie.
The new Mortal Kombat movie, he beats Kano with the low sweep. And he's like, is that all you could do? And he low sweeps.
That's pretty fun.
That was a great scene in the new Mortal Kombat movie. Great scene.
Oh my gosh, too funny. Yeah. So, Astrimedes, you got anything on that?
No specific scenes really come to mind. I mean, I will say, like, the most recent example I can think of that was kind of a pretty good scene, at least in terms of like a visual that definitely evoked the game, was there's a scene in the Twisted Metal series where you see Sweet Tooth's truck, Sweet Tooth's truck kind of barreling down the road. The clown head comes up. It's extremely accurate looking to the game, kind of bouncing around on top. He's barreling down on someone. Like, that was executed pretty well. It worked well, both as kind of like exciting Mad Max kind of esque movie scene, and as a like direct kind of homage to like a scene you could see in the video game.
Nice. That's good. Thinking about it, for me, I think Bloody Tears playing in the background of the fight between Trevor and Alucard in the first season of Castlevania. Definitely,
I caught that too. Yes,
it definitely helped to evoke the whole Castlevania theme to that. Excellent. Storm, do you have any favorite theme?
Yes, the Super Mario's Super Show theme song.
Which you're going to sing to us right now.
No, I will send you the video in chat, but like I just
leave
love
that to
intro.
Captain Lou.
Yes, with Captain Lou dancing around because I watched Captain Lou Albano like freaking wrestle and whatever. So to
He
see
was the
him as
best
Mario.
Mario. I haven't seen
Yes.
the new movie, but I'm gonna put my foot down on that.
Yeah, it was the best Mario. I do need to see the new movie too, but yeah, that is memorable. And yeah, Zelda. I won't get into my trouble with Zelda not realizing that his name wasn't, that Link was not Zelda. That's a whole nother confusion for another podcast.
That's our Zelda podcast that we're going to be
Yes.
having at some point.
But yeah,
Don't you mean our Link podcast where Zelda goes to save the princess?
see?
Why doesn't Metroid crawl? How do you make Metroid crawl? Jamie Owls, after hearing some of our examples, have you been able to think of a favorite or memory or theme for the video game movies?
Honestly, no. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. So that pretty much is our discussion for the movies and TV shows based off of video games. So again, big shout out and thank you to the crew here. And as I mentioned, the video that I got coming up this Saturday is about my general thoughts about whether or not you need to beat, finish, or complete a video game, and why you should really get rid of that sort of feeling of guilt. So make sure that you catch that of course is going to premiere this Saturday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. You of course can find Simbu Darkfang at the basement of the dead. That again is the basement of the dead in Aurora. So make sure to check that out, especially their opening night on September 22nd if you're in the Chicagoland area. Simbu, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, a basement. I just need a rocking chair and to build a little porch in the basement, and I'll be all right.
Yeah,
Level 5 grandpa for the win.
You'll be good. You won't scare anybody too much.
Coming to a basement near you.
Fly swatter.
No, get off his lawn.
There it goes.
Of course, we have Stormrosesky. You can find her at both Twitch and YouTube at Stormrosesky. Storm, what video are you currently working on again?
I am working on putting together a history of Pac-Man. It just started doing some research on that and making notes and stuff. So hopefully I'll get that done soon. I want to try to do something a little different than what I had been previously doing. So that is what is on deck next.
Awesome. Definitely looking forward to seeing that. Make sure you catch her videos as they premiere. Now, also we have Astrimedes, developer and co-owner of Second Place Games. Astrimedes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And I'll just mention, you mentioned the availability of Horde Lord at the top of the show. It actually hasn't been available in the Play Store for a while because I've not updated the natives. I needed to update the natives, blah, blah, blah. Boring technical reasons. I found out that they delisted it. So I'm actually working on migrating it to the newer version of the library so I can relist it again, and I will definitely just make it a free-to-play game this time as the first. When I say free-to-play, what I mean is just free, because the first time I charged $1 for it, and I'm attempting to migrate the code to this new version of this library I'm using and release it just for free this time. It'll be interesting to see how many more than 40 downloads I get when the price tag drops from $1 to $0.
Yeah, and it really is a good game. Astrimedes and the team did a really good job of putting that together. Once he does upload that back to the Google Play Store, I'll make sure to include a link of that in the description on YouTube, as well as all our podcast locations. Also, Jason the 13th, you can find him at his YouTube channel of Jason the 13th for excellent Tears of the Kingdom, Pokemon, and Fork Knife gameplay videos. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Not a problem.
And finally, of course, Jamie Owls. She is my partner and partner in crime. Jamie Owls, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and I'll make sure to finish Dead Space when I can.
No,
May
no.
not be this weekend, but eventually I'll finish it.
No pressure. That's where my video on Saturday comes into play to hopefully assuage some of the guilty feeling that you might get for having to play these games. So thank you, everybody.
And then I'll be there to counteract it.
Yes, you'll have Simbu counteracting it, and it just, yeah. So thank you to the team, and of course, audience. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.